What's going on, guys? Episode 25. We're here today with Corey Meyers. You know him on social media as C Meyers. He works for Live Nation. We talk about what he does for Live Nation, making album covers, band merch, promotional materials, everything else in between. We hammer that. We go through his different artworks, how he's getting started into the transition into more of the digital space, his relationship with different artists, his love for collabs, basically everything to do with digital art and like that whole kind of spectrum. Also, shout out to Goltra for picking up his latest piece. Congrats for winning that. That's awesome. And so Myers is, Goltra approved. You're going to learn about that in your future Digital Art 101. And so let's just get into it, right? You're here for Corey. Well, I'm here for Corey. Enjoy. All right? Later. Where does it all start for you? Like, how do you get involved with doing artwork? Are you classically trained, or where does that kind of begin for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of always, even as a kid, kind of been into art.
Mm-hmm.
Like I always wanted, instead of, my sister would be getting something else, I'd want the thing that I could color on,
Mm-hmm.
So I've always kind of shown an interest in it. And I was never super good at like fine art, like drawing or painting or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So graphic design was like the perfect kind of mix because I could be creative and be artistic, but but still, not have to rely on being a good illustrator or a good
Mm-hmm.
painter. So it was, I always had an interest in computers and art, and it was like the perfect marriage of the two.
Yeah.
So I mean, I remember my friend showing me some bootleg Photoshop version that he had,
Mm-hmm.
in like the early 2000s, and I was like, oh yeah, like this is it, this is what I need. And so like took my dad's laptop and stuff and got some bootleg Photoshop on there. So that's kind of how it started. And then I, in high school, my friends were in bands and I was in bands, and
Mm-hmm.
started doing like flyers and stuff for all that, and then kind of took off in a career in the music industry as a graphic designer, which is what I do now full time.
Nice. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
are you? I guess what's the lion's share of your work? Is it mainly doing it for like bands and for like the music industry, or I mean, because you're pumping a ton of stuff out digitally that's clearly not or doesn't seem like commission work.
Right. Yeah. So I have a full time job with Live Nation.
Mm-hmm.
So I do band merchandise is my full time gig, and doing T-shirts and stuff like that. And then on the side, I'll do some album covers and stuff for some other bands. So that's kind of the main thing
Mm-hmm.
for me. And then I will just do personal work on the side, and that's kind of a lot of my Instagram is all personal work.
Nice.
So, and then, yeah, my friend, Glass Crane, he got me into the crypto art thing. And so he kind of hooked me up with Zach over at Superrare, and I got onto Known Origin.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought like, oh, all this personal work I'm doing seems like it would fit well in that space.
Mm-hmm.
So I just started, minting some pieces and seeing how it goes, and it's been an interesting ride.
Yeah, I mean they've clearly been hitting. I mean, like it's something that I've been really curious with people. They all,
Yeah.
or a lot of your pieces all kind of have like a similar vibe, right? Like they're all, or many of them are grid like.
Hmm.
A large head that's either being driven towards or into, or up in like the horizon kind of thing. And so like you
Yeah.
you definitely have like a clear style. And
Hmm.
for me, like I guess I'm very just I bounce around a lot. Do you think that you're going to
Yeah.
continue not hammering, but do you think you're going to continue in the same style, or you are going to branch out? Like, is it just whatever comes to mind, or
I
how do you
think,
really decide?
yeah, yeah, totally. I think that I'm not afraid of evolution.
Hmm.
So there was a period where some of that stuff looked way more just like vaporwave, like straight up with the blue and pink.
Hmm.
And I sort of started, it kind of got tired for me.
Hmm.
And so I was like, I want to try to find a way to make this grittier. And, so I'm not afraid of evolution. And I definitely don't want to put myself in a box, if that makes sense. So I think like, yeah, as long as I'm finding ways to do this style in interesting ways and keep pushing the boundaries of it,
Mhm.
then I think it'll just inevitably evolve from there. And I'm sure I'll find new ways to kind of add to it, and eventually it'll look completely different, but as a slow evolution, I think
Mhm.
that's kind of been how my work has evolved over time.
Mhm.
And then learning new tools and stuff, like you're always going to find new ways to approach your style.
Mhm.
So yeah, but I also something that I think it was Adventures in Design
Mhm.
podcast. I was listening to that one time, and he said that repetition is what makes you who you are.
Mhm.
So if like look at Andy Warhol, all those people are like known for doing the same thing over and over,
Mhm.
just in new ways.
Mhm.
So that's why Andy Warhol looks like Andy Warhol.
Yeah.
You can look at a piece and go, "Oh, that's Andy Warhol,"
Mhm.
without even knowing if it is or not. He just has a style, and it's because he just kept repeating it.
Mhm.
So I think there's something in that. There's something in repetition,
Mhm.
and then there's something in natural evolution of your work. So
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that it's almost like if it continues to step by step, when you look at something from step 1 to step 100, they look
mhm,
totally disjointed, but then step 1 to
exactly,
5, you can kind of see where it came from. So I mean,
exactly.
you can kind of evolve, yeah, like you're saying, right? the
Yeah,
the evolution. um
I see that in my kids as well. Like I have a 1 year old and a 2 year old, and you see them every day, so you don't see them. You don't notice the changes, but
mhm.
then if you look at a photo of them when they were born, you're like, oh my gosh, they look so different.
Yeah.
So I think it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like your work, every time you do something new, it'll look slightly different than the one before,
Mhm.
and then you'll look back at stuff you did 10 years ago and be like, oh my god, it looks terrible.
Yeah. I guess so. The kids are actually an interesting angle that I haven't really thought of before. You're the first one that has discussed kids, and so do you have plans in terms of like how you're going to raise your kids to really be art centric with them, or like what kind of role do you think art and other stuff do you plan to
Sure.
have in their life?
Yeah. I mean, I think the arts are important,
Mhm.
but I would never want to force them into anything. But I think it's important to teach, especially at this age,
Mhm.
teaching them to be creative and stuff is super important.
Mhm.
But if they don't want to do art or be involved in the arts, I'm not going to like try to force them,
Mhm.
because like my dad, he had me take piano lessons, and I hated piano. So then eventually I was just like, I'm over it. But it
Mhm.
taught me music,
Yeah.
and so eventually I started playing drums and guitar, and so it was the gateway to my introduction to the music.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
yeah.
think I think some kind of training is like good because I, I've said this before on like the last podcast, but I am wildly not artistic whatsoever, and
Yeah.
I think that like my dad is pretty artistic, my brother is pretty artistic in terms of drawing, and then like
Mhm.
I just growing up like I'd look at their stuff and I'd be like, the fuck is this? You know what I mean? Like I remember like that kind of
Right.
thought process as like a kid, and so I think that again, if they show initiative or if they want to, doing that kind of art stuff, like sucking is terrible, right? But like if you
Yeah.
can learn like the basics, that's what. Yeah, it would have been helpful towards that.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Yeah, and it's good, even just to like let them color for a little bit and
mhm,
stuff like that. But I mean, yeah, I don't want to like force them into something they don't want to do, for
mhm.
sure.
So, like you mentioned that you worked for Live Nation. What kind of projects have you done with Live Nation? I've seen your most recent post, so if you want to talk about that.
Yeah. Let me see. I'm trying to figure out what I
I
can
think it's
talk
Wu Tang.
about and what I can't.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, we do a lot of Wu Tang. The most recent thing I posted was Wu Wear,
Mhm.
which is their clothing company that's attached to the Wu Tang kind of brand.
Mhm.
So we do both. We do a bunch of Wu Tang stuff, and we also kind of revived the Wu Wear line, which was super popular like in the '90s.
Mhm.
And so we kind of wanted to bring back the '90s aesthetic to it, and so everything's kind of like a vintage wash and stuff like that. That was a super fun one to work on. But we do all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's mostly tour and retail and online, and we're not doing tours right now, obviously. So it's shifted a lot to online.
Mhm.
But yeah, what I do mostly is t-shirt designs. We do like accessories and all that stuff as well. And then I also got to kind of handle a few of the projects, like project manage them.
Mhm.
And so we did Queens of the Stone Age just launched a bunch of new stuff that I kind of got to direct and design for. So that was really fun too. I've been working on Queens of the Stone Age stuff for ages.
That's
So
awesome.
that was super fun. And then because of that, actually, I also got to Troy from the band. He has a new project with a few other guys from other bands, like at the Drive-In and Mastodon.
Mhm.
And so they had me do their album cover. So it was kind of like I've worked with all of those bands in the past.
Mhm.
So it kind of just all came together and just made sense for me to work on their record. But that was separate from the Live Nation stuff.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it was really fun.
So do you foresee that you're going to continue down the path of just kind of like splitting, a corporate job and this, despite like any like
Yeah.
yes, okay.
Yeah, I mean, because I love doing band merch.
Mhm.
It's just fun to me. So even if like I turned into, the next like fuck render or something,
Mhm.
and I'm just making a ton of money on crypto art, like I would still do band merch because it's just
Mhm.
fun to me. I just love it.
Nice.
So and it's where I started. It's my roots, and if I could do it without having to rely on it for income, even better.
Yeah.
Like I'll still do it.
Yeah. That's
So
awesome. Like
yeah, it's really fun.
I think that
That
mm,
I was just gonna say that and album covers, like I'll never stop doing
mm,
album covers. So
I mean, I think that's really one of the biggest things in terms of like life is finding something that like what you have is something that you want to do regardless of getting paid, right?
yeah, yeah,
Like
exactly.
I mean, people have always said that, and like it almost sounds like shenanigans that somebody could find that. So it's awesome that you've kind of like clicked with
Right.
that.
Yeah. Something that's really cool actually is so my parents they're in Phoenix, and they
Mhm.
when tours were happening, they were working part time
Mhm.
as just ushers at the at the arena or whatever,
Mhm.
at concerts and stuff. And I remember being a kid, like I said, in high school, like doing T-shirts and stuff for my friends' bands, and my parents.
Mhm.
There go the dogs.
It's all good.
Um, Sorry about that.
No, no worries, no worries.
No, so they were like, well, what do you want to do?
Mhm.
Like, you got to figure it out because your senior year is coming up and you got
Mhm.
to figure out what you want to do. And I'm like, I'm doing it. Like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, you got to have a career. And I'm like, I'll figure that out. Like,
Mhm.
but this is what I want to do. So then, now that I work for Live Nation, they could go like to these concerts working, and I could say, "Oh, go check out the merch booth because I
Mhm.
did all the stuff." And they could go while they're working and go, "Oh, like he did all this." Like so, it was a cool little like kind of like I told you guys, like
Mhm.
I could do it. So it's been a fun ride.
If so, I guess was there ever like a point where you were kind of like hedging your bet, or like how what was the transition into like Live Nation like? Like, did you ever have any kind of like pitfalls or issues or backup plans, or how did that kind
Oh,
of
for
go?
sure. I mean, it's funny. I never had a backup plan.
Hmm.
I just always kept going.
Hmm.
So I probably should have had a backup plan, but
It worked.
yeah, exactly. I think I just had a very organic, slow growth,
Hmm.
um, and a very natural progression. So of course there were times where I was really struggling financially and things like that. But I think everyone has those moments. That's just part of growing up for a lot of people.
Hmm.
So I, was taking any job I could get. Luckily in Orange County, there's a lot of like active sports companies and things like that. Like I worked at Hurley for a little bit. I
Nice.
worked at Element doing like skate decks and
Hmm.
all of that. And then I even worked at Urban Decay, which is a makeup company,
Hmm.
just as, like a junior designer just to get paid. So
Hmm.
like there were always like some opportunities to at least have like a job.
Hmm.
But as far as like when I was at Urban Decay, I wasn't doing what I wanted to do, but I would do that on the side. I would still do merch and album covers on the side.
Mm.
So yeah, of course there were always like times where I wasn't doing exactly what I wanted, but I still had my eye on the goal of doing it. And then the Live Nation thing happened just organically. Just I knew them and they were looking to hire a full-time employee instead of just me doing freelance. So I was like, oh yeah, sure, I'd love to. And then so I joined Live Nation full-time, been there for about 2 years. So
Nice.
yeah.
So I guess from like a technical side of things, like where are you mainly working? I've heard, a lot of people work in like Blender and ZBrush and stuff to that extent. So yeah.
Sure, man. It's a little bit all over the place. It's
Mhm.
it's some Cinema 4D, some Photoshop, some Illustrator, some stuff by hand.
Mhm.
So it's those are the main ones. But I mean, so this is an interesting one. The clouds that you see in a lot of my work are
Mhm.
like literal pictures of clouds. So like just where I live, every morning there's just these really cool wispy clouds, and I just take pictures with my phone,
Yeah.
and then just kind of implement those into my pieces. So it's like digital photography and mixing that with Cinema 4D and then Photoshop, and like so it's kind of haphazard in a way,
Mhm.
but I just try to I make it work. But that's kind of the main thing. And I started getting into Blender, but it just wasn't giving me the results that I needed for certain things. So I haven't gotten there yet with Blender, but so all the 3D stuff I do is in Cinema 4D.
So for you with like learning new, techniques or new programs, like are you also using like paid services or are you just kind of hitting YouTube or how do you delve into new design techniques?
Yeah, it's fun. Like I'll look at tutorials and stuff,
Hmm.
but then like do something completely different with it. Because I think like that's what makes people unique is when they can take knowledge and then apply it in a completely different way.
Hmm.
So like all the 3D grid landscape thing I learned how to do, but then I just took it and did something completely different and hopefully unique with it.
Hmm.
Instead of like, because like I said, I used to have a more like straightforward vaporwave look,
Hmm.
and I was like, this just looks too much like other people's stuff, and I didn't want that. So
Hmm.
I wanted to just kind of evolve it and make it my own.
Hmm.
But yeah, I look at some tutorials and stuff like that, but a lot of it is just kind of me messing around and coming up with new ways to do things.
What's your like what's like a day to day in the life of you like in terms of I guess like between messing around and learning new stuff and yeah, like how much time are you spending on pieces?
Oh God, it's different every day, especially with kids and dogs and
Mhm.
working from home. But I mean, I have a full-time job, like I said, so the bulk of my day is working full-time
Mhm.
for Live Nation doing band merchandise. And then, at night I'll just kind of crack open my laptop and, have some whiskey and start playing around and see what happens. And then some next thing you know, it's like 2 in the morning. So yeah. Day to day though, yeah, a lot of it, like I said, is just working the full-time job and
Mhm.
kind of playing around in between projects.
Nice. What's the whiskey of choice?
Oh God, my collection has grown exponentially since working from home.
Yeah.
But I guess let's go Weller.
Weller. Nice.
Yeah,
Nice. I've
when you can find it.
I always go back to Hibiki.
Oh
Sometimes
yeah,
when you can find it, but I had a
yeah.
friend talk about. Have you heard about coffee ground whiskey? That's
No.
apparently like a big up and comer. I haven't gotten around to tasting it, but apparently that's supposed to be like top notch, nice and smooth. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah. Japanese whiskey is really good. I like Japanese whiskey.
yeah, it makes it for my birthday like probably 4 or 5 years ago. One friend got me Hibiki and one friend got me Jameson Special Cask, and like
Oh yeah, those are fun.
I opened with the Jameson Special Cask, and then I had the Hibiki, and I went to go back to the Jameson, and like the bite on Jameson is just so much
Hmm.
sharper that it's like
Oh
it's
yeah,
almost untouchable to like to go back to. It's such
yeah.
a harsh change, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, Hibiki's really nice though.
Yeah, yeah.
I
What's
always say like Japanese whiskey is very like pretty,
yes,
and bourbon is a little more put hair on your chest.
yes, yes. I've had many friends with the put hair on your chest get into fights anytime they drink whiskey, and like the later stage of their 20s, they go, "No, I don't drink whiskey. Every time I do that, something bad happens."
Right. Yeah.
For you, like you're obviously in a professional, formal setting in terms of like the art industry, right? With Live Nation,
Right.
and then the NFT industry is blossoming, right? Is probably the best word
Yeah.
for it. Like,
Oh, exploding. I would
yes,
say is more. I
yes,
don't know if it's a blossom.
yeah, yeah. Exploding is probably, yeah, that's probably the better word.
Yeah.
What's like the what are the pros, the cons, the differences, the loves, the hates?
Man, they are just so insanely different.
Mhm,
And I'm still trying to navigate and find my way
mhm,
in the NFT space, and try to figure it out as I go. Because I
mhm.
mean, it's evolving too, like rapidly.
Yeah.
So, my friend Glass Crane tried to like explain it to me, and I was like, "Wait, what?" Like,
Yeah.
so they pay me in cryptocurrency to own my art? Like, okay, what? I didn't get it. And
Mhm,
then so I've learned a lot since then, and it's vastly different than what I'm used to.
mhm,
Because I'm used to, sit down with a client, discuss what do you want on your merch, and then some clients are very involved, some aren't involved at all.
mhm,
Um, and so your goal is pleasing the client when you're doing merch.
mhm.
Your goals in crypto art or NFTs are do what you want.
Yeah.
So they're really really different approaches, and I think um, the goals of them are what make them so different.
Mhm,
Um, but just as fun. And I think what's interesting is being able to do similar styles of art in both,
mhm.
because I've kind of built a reputation for having those like grid landscapes and things like that,
Yeah.
which a lot of people come to me for their merch or album covers to look like that.
Mhm.
And so being able to still be myself in both spaces is I'm super grateful for. Um, so it's interesting being able to be myself, but have two completely different goals and processes in those two spaces, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. No, no, that definitely makes sense. Have you? So, I mean, it seems like you're decently close with Glass Crane. Like, have you thought about having a similar route to what he is and what Android Jones has with like the VJ sets, like the virtual side to the music at all?
That's something I'm interested in, but that would be like I have so much to learn in that space because I don't do video.
Uh huh.
So the whole like side where it's animated or even live,
Hmm.
like that blows my mind.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to sit down with him someday and he can show me exactly like how he does it because it's pretty crazy.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's interesting to me, and I'm always looking to like explore new ways to approach my art, and if that's an avenue that kind of shows up at some point, I definitely wouldn't say no to it.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like your artwork is very would lend itself very well to it, right? Like you, I mean,
Yeah.
for like house music and stuff like that, the large screen and then your artwork
Oh,
like
totally.
it looks
Yeah.
like a pause, like it looks like a still from a video.
Right. Exactly. I think the challenge for me there would, because like I said, a lot of uh, it, I use a lot of different programs to achieve the look that I have,
Mhm,
and you couldn't have that same approach.
mhm,
So I would have to change my approach and try to figure out some way to still have the same look,
mhm,
um, using just whatever program you would use for those VJ sets or whatever.
mhm.
But yeah, it's definitely super interesting to me.
Nice. So
Yeah.
for you in the industry, like who else are you interested in like working with? Who else gives like a lot of inspiration? I'm assuming you bounce a lot of ideas with like Glass Crane just from you mentioned him two or three
Yeah,
times. So
we actually just collaborated. I think I can say this. We just collaborated on an album cover for band Every Time I Die.
Mm-hmm.
So they're a like hardcore metal band from Buffalo. So it's interesting working with him on a like hardcore
Mm-hmm.
album cover. But they wanted like super 80s, like Trapper Keeper,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like Marble Madness kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I worked with him on that, and that was super fun. That album cover's not out yet, but the singles used bits and pieces from that, so you guys could check those out.
Awesome.
The singles are A Colossal Wreck and Desperate Pleasures, and then AWOL.
I'll try and link
So
that into the YouTube too.
yeah, so that's fun. I can't wait to show the full album cover of that. That was really fun to work with him on.
Is there any type of like genre? Is it easier to work with, say like individuals versus bands just due to, different levels of inputs, right? 4 people versus one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole spectrum in the music industry of how much people care
Mm-hmm.
about their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are like, I trust you, do your thing, and then I do it, and they're like, okay, cool. And then other people will nitpick for months.
Yeah.
And like, oh, can you move this just a little bit over to the left? Can you move that down? Like make the logo bigger, all of that. So it's really interesting how some people care almost too much, and then some people don't care at all.
Yeah.
So that's it's really fascinating. But the one thing I've learned is meeting with the client almost always gets way more approvals.
Mm-hmm.
If you can sit down and talk to somebody about what their goals are and what they want to achieve, you're already in a better place. Because I can't tell you how frustrating it is to be relying on a band's manager to relay information to an art director who relays information to the designer,
mm-hmm.
and how much gets lost in translation between.
Mm-hmm.
And then so you think you're nailing it, and then the client's like, that's not what we wanted at all. I'm like, well, I was just doing what I was told. So, but when you can sit down and have a conversation,
mm-hmm.
and they say a word and you're like, okay, well, what do you mean by that? Because this is what that means to me.
Mm-hmm.
It might mean something different to you. So I've always found it's way more successful to actually sit down and talk to somebody. Maybe not in person, but like on the phone or whatever. You're always in a way better place actually having conversations with them. Mm-hmm. But in this industry, it's not always possible, especially with like some of the caliber of musicians we're dealing with. It's not always possible to like get them to come in and sit down with you. But interestingly, we like one of the biggest acts we have, Jonas Brothers, like they were down. Mm-hmm. So like the Jonas Brothers actually like came in and talked to us, and like we bounced ideas off of them, and it was super successful. Like they approved everything pretty much. So it's interesting for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely awesome. I mean, I think that's with the digital age and everything with Corona, everybody's like, oh, everything's going to be online, but like the in-person capability of sealing a deal, or to your extent, like really getting through what you need, like if it works through Zoom, it works through Zoom, or if it works on a phone call, then it works through a phone call. But that face-to-face is really going to, from like a business sense, like really seal deals on top of that. Just being able to send an email,
totally.
Not going to work for everybody for everything.
Yeah, exactly. So that's, I don't know. I think it's just always better to be able to talk at least on the phone, mm-hmm. and be able to have conversations, and you're in a way better place when you do that, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. For like, what else? You mentioned that you play the drums and guitar. Do you have any other hobbies? Do you find any kind of like cross functionality that helps you in the artistic space from other types of things that you have going on in your life?
The kids keep me pretty busy, so as far as like hobbies and stuff, I don't do a whole lot outside of art and music, and then the family. But I mean, I one of my biggest things that I try to implement is I always am looking at things and asking myself why I like it and why I don't like it. Mm-hmm. Like whether it be like packaging at the store, mm-hmm. I'll like turn to my wife and be like, I hate this packaging, this logo is terrible. Mm-hmm. Or like, oh my gosh, this is the most clever logo ever. Like I'm kind of like constantly in a headspace of like observing and
Mm.
asking myself what makes this good or what makes this bad, and kind of always trying to take something away from it.
Mm.
Like even if it's a color palette, like something as small as that.
Mm.
So I think that's kind of what helps me kind of stay inspired, is just having a constant mindset of observation and questioning.
Yeah, yeah. I think being obsessed really helps you to like manifest in things, right? Like you just
Yeah.
kind of like not that not manifest in like the woo woo, but like manifest in terms of
Right.
like you're
Yeah.
just always about it. Is there any like companies or designs that you think of top of mind that are really good or like really bad or palettes, anything?
Companies, let's see. Uh, I think A24, they've done an insanely good job of creating a brand as a whole, just
Mm.
as a movie production company. Um, their logo is great. They have Online Ceramics do a lot of merch for them, which is, it's not just a single collab on one movie.
Mm.
They have them kind of constantly working with them. They've created a really cool brand for themselves, I think. And you typically don't want to go into a movie saying like this production company did it, so it's going to be good. But with
Mm.
A24, you pretty much can.
Mm.
They've just built such a reputation for themselves and a brand as a movie production company that I don't think we've seen in a while.
What are some of the movies that they made? I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, they do. They did like The Witch, Hereditary, Midsummer.
Mm.
They do all kinds of stuff. I hope I didn't get that wrong. I'm pretty sure they did all those.
Mm.
But yeah.
It's all good. So like, where do you do you kind of have plans for like the next year, 5 years, like anything that you want to be hitting or artists that you want to work with, or like where do you see yourself in the space as time goes on?
Yeah. I definitely want to do something with Glass Crane for
Mm.
Superrare. Like I said, we collaborated on that album cover, and it was really fun to work with him on that. So I think that would be really fun. And then one of my friends, he's so like low key that I don't. He doesn't even have like an Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
But his name's Andrew Strzelecki. I've worked with him on some music videos.
Mm.
He does really cool animation stuff, and I think it would be cool to like just send him like a scene that I create in Cinema 4D and have him run with it.
Mm.
I think that would be super fun. And a guy, Tim, I'm gonna butcher his last name, Riopel.
Mm.
I
I,
don't know how to pronounce it,
I
but
don't know how to pronounce it either.
yeah, yeah. I think we could probably do something really cool together. But yeah, I just dropped a collab with James Nowitzki,
Mm.
Gentleman Bronco. That just went up on Superrare a couple hours ago, I think.
Yeah, I can pull that up
That
right
was
now.
really fun. Yeah.
Let's try and open that. Let's see.
Yeah, and then I did that. I did a two-part collab with Nate Hill. We've like followed each other on Instagram and stuff for ages, and
Mhm.
it was really interesting to see how our two styles kind of came together.
Mhm. How how has like the pivot been for you? Because it seems like you kind of hit the ground running, right? Like it doesn't it seems like you kind of already had legs as far as being able to really get into success or selling things in a shorter time period than I've seen with like a lot of other artists. Like, what do you attribute to that?
Um, that's really that's a good question, and I wish I knew the answer to it. But I think crypto art pretty much lives on like Twitter.
Hmm.
So I got a Twitter for the first time,
Hmm.
and I was like, I'm just gonna follow everyone that I can.
Hmm.
Start, you know, as dumb as it sounds, like just replying to people,
Hmm.
liking their posts and retweeting, like things like that. Just actually being actively involved,
Hmm.
and not just throwing something up on Superrare and just praying someone picks it up.
Yeah.
Like actually being part of the community, I think is super crucial. And working with, I think the collab with Nate Hill and this new one with James, I think it's such a collaborative community, and I think helping each other out, like it doesn't hurt anyone.
Yeah.
You know, competition's good, but you know, collaboration's better, I think.
Mhm.
So I think that's kind of what has helped. And Glass Crane kind of helped get me uh, connected with Zach at Superrare. So he was a massive help to me. So yeah, I think that's kind of the main thing is being a part of the community and collaborating with people and being part of the conversation.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that, some people have said that like sometimes people are lacking in just actually being genuine about caring about other people's stuff, but it does seem like a lot of people,
right,
the talent shows through, right? Like for everybody who's sitting there going, "Yay, this is great." Like sometimes you go, "It's not that great." But like, there are pieces that are really good that are going to shine through. I think that
yeah,
regardless, that kind of positivity is good. There's just definitely are different levels and, things that don't strike me that strike somebody else, and, they go, "All right, I need to have that."
yeah. I saw another someone, I forget who it was. Someone posted on Twitter like DM collectors, but don't just DM them your art and say, "Hey, can you buy this?" Like I think being genuine
Mm,
and all of that, like it'll come, you know.
mm. Yep.
But yeah, I think everyone's kind of clawing to try to find their space and kind of be seen. And I just think that organic growth is going to get you further than
Mm.
you know just exploding onto the scene. And so I don't know.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I see things.
Yeah, I mean, Glass Crane talked about like, just a random like I think he was saying that like metal bands have like a lot of issues with this where like they just get like thrown into the industry and, they have like millions of likes and millions of followers but nobody shows up to the concert, and somebody who
Yep.
has, 200,000 but it's organic and slow, like you have, almost the zealots, the true believers of like
Oh yeah.
fandom, right? And you want more the, 100% all in type of person being behind your
Hmm.
work than, a million people who, it's okay. I listen to it. I
Oh
like it.
yeah. Yeah, there's even some artists on Instagram or whatever, they have like hundreds of thousands of followers
Mm,
and they get like very few likes and interaction because they're either paid for
mm,
or just, you know, they just don't actually care about the art. So I
mm,
think I've had a really slow organic growth on Instagram as well.
mm,
And I think, I mean, I haven't really looked at it, but I think my ratio of like how many followers I have to how many people actively like and comment
mm,
is really good. I know a lot of these people. Like
mm,
it's not just random bots or something like that. And I think that's the key. And you know, I'm not sitting here saying I have it all figured out. I mean, I have like 4,000 followers on Instagram isn't
mm,
insane. I'm not one of those ones that has like 200,000 or something like that.
mm,
But uh, I think that slow organic growth is just it takes you further than the other route. So
mm. Yeah, yeah. For for you with like the different marketplaces, like which ones do you like? Do you think that, and this is another question that I've kind of beaten into the dust, but I'm always curious what people's takes are. Like, what do you think about the, open editions versus numbered editions? And now we're almost seeing like a loot box kind of drop where, oh, you
sure.
have, 0.9% for this, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still learning, man. I'm
Mm,
still figuring it out myself. All I've done so far is just one of one
mm,
editions. I'm super open to exploring like more editions, but I want to do it like in a creative way.
mm,
So I'm still trying to figure that out and navigate that space. And people are getting crazy creative with how they do their drops, and
mm,
I think I need to be more creative about that as well. I just kind of I make a piece and then I kind of tease it and then put it up.
mm,
But yeah, I don't really know how I feel about these different editions. I think sometimes it can cheapen it.
mm,
I mean, sometimes maybe that's just the better route for the artist. I think each artist is going to be different and they're going to have their own way of doing things, and whatever works for you as an artist, I think more power to you. If having 100 editions of the same thing is going to work for you, then try it out. But I mean, I'm on Known Origin and Superrare. Those are the only two I'm on.
Mm.
And I've had way more success with Superrare so far.
Mm.
So I don't know if that says anything about Known Origin or Superrare, but that's just kind of where I found more success so far. So
Awesome.
yeah, and I don't know what it is. Something about Rarible, they have an issue with ripoff artists. I don't
Okay.
know. They got to figure that out.
Can you
Something.
can you elaborate on that a little bit? I haven't heard about it.
Yeah, they just have an issue where people are just taking other people's art and putting it up on Rarible.
Okay.
And for some reason, I don't know if they have like they need to implement some kind of like verification
Mm.
or something like that. But it's weird. It's like a weird issue that they have that I haven't really seen with Superrare or Known Origin. Because I mean, it's easy to do. You can just right click, save as, and sell it.
Yeah.
But
you just open up stores, man. Nobody knew how to do that.
Nobody knew how to save to desktop. But yeah, it's crazy, man. But I mean, I think that's what's really interesting about this space is it's more than just like owning a JPEG. It's not that. It's the token and all of that. Like there's a lot more to it. But it's funny trying to explain it to somebody. It's like, wait, so they just own your art? And you're like, yeah, I guess. Like, can't I just save it to my desktop? Like, if you want, but that's not what it's about, you know? So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think that the same people that you have to do the explaining to are also usually people who are not involved in the crypto space as a whole. On top of that,
Right.
and so not that there's anything wrong with that. It's a risk profile, or just some people are more tech centric and stuff to that extent. But no, this is actually a token, and that has the art tied to it.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
it's definitely, like you said, right? It's definitely like an explosion, and I think that the wave that is happening as far as like crypto is definitely impactful. Do you think that if crypto has like another bear market, like what happened from 2018 until now, do you think that like slows? It's like a straight stop, or like what do you think happens in the NFT industry if there is another bear market in terms of like Bitcoin and crypto?
Right. That'll be really interesting. It's hard because as the cryptocurrencies are rising in value, then all of a sudden you're like, wait, should I value my art at a lower amount? So that like, because we're constantly like equating it to the dollar, which almost isn't the point. So it's like, say you're going to put something up for 3 Ethereum, and then all of a sudden Ethereum is worth $4,000 in a few months. Do you still put it up for 3, or do you drop it down to be more comparable to the dollar? So that's interesting. I know Glass Crane was tweeting about how like, no, my art is valued in Ethereum, so I'm keeping it.
Yeah.
So I mean, but again, if that works for you as an artist, then great. Some artists might struggle if they, keep it at the same Ethereum, but the prices are skyrocketing. So I think the other thing too is collectors. I think we need more collectors in the space, and not having the same people keep buying art. I think introducing people to collecting is crucial, and then also artists collecting other artists is going to help as well. But I think as it explodes, I think you need more of both, because I think we're seeing an explosion of artists, but not necessarily collectors. So I think that's why a lot of people are starting to struggle to find their place and sell art, because it's like there's all of a sudden a million artists and not enough people buying. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Do you have a collection yourself growing?
I've bought a couple pieces, and I want to wait until I start selling some and start kind of reinvesting some of those earnings into collecting.
Mm.
So I definitely want to start collecting, but I think I want to get some more significant pieces. So I think I need to grow my sales before I can, buy the ones that I want to buy.
Mm. Yeah,
But yeah.
I think like as far as like valuing based on ETH, like it's I don't know how I feel like whether or not it's correct or incorrect. I think that you would like what your point is, right? If ETH hits $4,000, right, and you're valuing your piece at 5 ETH, well, the $400 ETH, that's 2K, and if somebody's not an ETH, then okay, I'm just putting in $2,000. But if it becomes
Right.
$4,000, right, now you're astronomically more like expensive, right? And
Yeah.
I think that because not enough people, it's not quite the same as like the dollar versus the euro, where like people
Hmm.
are not inherently native to the ETH space or to the Bitcoin space. And so, unless
Hmm.
you have all of your holdings, all of your pay is going up, that inflationary aspect and comparably deflationary, right? Like
Yeah.
it works in your favor if ETH goes up, but if ETH goes back down to, whatever, $50, then are you going to be happy with $250, right? That's,
Exactly.
I think that's a problem because when you go to the grocery store, you can't go, oh, but I have 5 ETH.
Yeah. Well, you can't yet,
Yes, yes, but
but yeah. Yeah, I see what you're saying. And then, yeah, it's tricky, man. And like I said, I'm still trying to find my space
mm,
there. And, the one thing I didn't want to do when I joined is devalue my work and
mm,
say like, I don't know, like you tell me what it's worth. And then
yeah,
all of a sudden you're getting, um, bids for like zero point 0.1 and you're
mm.
just like, like could have sold that to a band for more than that. But, I don't want to make it about the money. It's
Mm,
more about like, it's more about the value of the art than it
mm,
is like the monetary value.
mm,
I think it's tricky. I mean, would it have made sense to hit the ground running and be like, this is worth 10 ETH?
mm.
Or would people laugh at you? You know
Yep,
what I mean? It's a really tricky thing to navigate because then there are people that sell stuff for like 25.
yeah,
It's, you know, you can't just show up and be like, my art's worth 25 too.
mm,
Maybe you can, I don't know,
yeah.
maybe you can. Maybe I'm an idiot and I should have done that. I
Well,
don't know.
Lindsay Lohan showed up and she sold hers to her husband for 45 ETH, so she set her ground floor pretty high.
Yeah, exactly.
For super rare and rareable and everything else, are they also similar to Nifty, where I know Nifty for a fact has like a portion of each transfer goes to the artist? That's still the case with super rare and rareable, right?
I'm actually not 100% sure on that because, like I
Mm,
said, the only two I'm on are on Superrare and Known
mm,
Origin, so I'm not sure all of the differences
mm.
as far as that goes.
Yeah, because I mean, I feel like so I was talking to like when I was talking to Glass Crane, right? Like to your point, you need new people into the space, right? And I
Mhm.
think part of getting new people into the space is again having like what I was saying on his was having the correct bot protection, but also being able to have affordable prices. And if you as an artist are going to get paid on each subsequent sale, then if you sell it for 5 and it immediately resells for 5,000, then who cares if it sold the first time for 5,000 or the second time for
Right.
5,000 if you're still going to get, a portion of the money, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And like,
Yeah, exactly.
that $5,000 come up is, if you're, I like to think that somebody who's not affluent has a little bit more hustle than somebody who is affluent in terms of, times or following you. Like if you just drop randomly, I think that generally speaking, you're going to get somebody who has a little more hustle in them than somebody who is, a whale per se, right? And
Right.
so they get the piece, and then a whale buys it from them. They make a little bit more money. Now they can actually afford to be a collector of other pieces.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I agree.
that's my hope. I'm
Yeah.
like I'm very like Nifty has switched. I haven't really started. I've mainly been active myself on Nifty Gateway, and it used to be just whoever was fast, and so well,
Yeah.
okay, there was bots. There's 100% bots, and that was definitely an issue. But in a perfect world, it was who was fast, and there was
Yeah.
when they dropped the additions of like 20, like I've gotten some of those, right? And so
Right.
I was pretty happy with that. right? And so it was one of those things. My brother, like hearing about it, he was like, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna go for like one of the boxing ones, right?" There was a boxing piece. I can't
Right.
think of the artist off the top of my head, but you know, the there was a person who had a bot who accumulated 3 out of the 10 on like one drop, and it was like, "Oh, okay, that's a fucking
Yeah.
problem."
Yeah. There's definitely some stuff that reminds me, like, I used to be kind of a sneakerhead. I still like
Mhm,
some things, but I couldn't keep up. I was like, I'm sick of like the bots, and like
mhm.
I'm not gonna spend $1,500 on like the secondary market just for some shoes.
Mhm.
So there's some stuff that is definitely reminding me of that with some of these drops, and
Mhm.
it's fun in
Yeah,
some ways.
yeah. It's problematic in a lot of others. I'm also like a
Yeah.
pretty big sneakerhead. I had on a guy. His name is or his account is Lace Collector, and he's known as Lace Collector. And so he
Mhm.
has, I don't know, I forget what the total number was. I want to say somewhere in like the mid hundreds in terms of shoes, and so they're all up in the background behind him. And he has the Union Jordan ones and
Right. Right.
the Union fours, and then just a ton of different kicks. And
Hmm.
he buys shoes partially, like sometimes he'll resell something, but he buys shoes because the stores near him don't get them. So like the only way that he can see, feel, touch, like handle the shoe is to buy it himself. And so
Yeah.
he bought the Chunky Dunks, the ice cream shoes, the Ben and Jerry Dunks,
Yeah.
just to feel them, just to see them, right? So like he bought that
Hmm.
and then sold them because he was like, "Ah, I'm not gonna wear that." But like
Yeah. For
he'll
sure.
literally lose money on it just to actually witness the shoe kind of thing. And so
Yeah.
I kind of have like a little bit of that myself. I've been blessed with the sneakers app and hit the off white fours and the off white fives.
Dude, I got so insanely lucky when all 10 of those dropped. I tried for so many of them and failed, and somehow I got the ones.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I just wore them. Now they look like shit, but I wore them
Yeah,
so much.
but that's the point of shoes. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I bought I bought a pair of size 10 Jubilees thinking that they would fit, and my brother was like, "Oh, like I'll take them." So my brother just
Mhm.
took them off me. Literally, he picked them up last night from my parents' house, and he's in love with them. So like
Yeah.
I think that the drive to accumulate shoes is similar to the drive to accumulate art, where like you want to have cool shit, you want to have unique shit, you want to have
Oh yeah.
something that I've said this before, and the same mentality. It's for your own sake. It's not that somebody else can't have it. It's that you can actually like have it. Like it's cool to have something somebody else doesn't or hasn't
Yeah.
seen before.
Mhm. I saw. So that's what's interesting is some artists are starting to kind of look the same. Like
Mhm.
there's a lot of you know shiny humanoid looking people
Mhm.
with no hair,
Mhm.
and I'm guilty of it too. But the someone tweet I forget who it was. Someone tweeted like challenge for 2021: add hair to your figures.
Uh-huh.
It's like, yeah, but like I think trying to do something different in the space is my goal.
Mhm.
I want to stand out.
Mhm.
I don't want to blend in,
Mhm.
and that's kind of my goal for the year. I think is find a way to stand out in the space and kind of rise above.
Mhm. I think you're accomplishing it, right? Like not to, be too complimentary and like,
Right.
but realistically your pieces, when you see pieces, you definitely have a unique style where people go, "Oh, that's, Meyers, that's C Meyers, right? Like that's Corey's." It's dynamic, it's different. Like it's very much a still frame of like almost like a Tron-esque with, like what I was
Yeah.
describing. And I think that you and Glass Crane have like a similar ability to pop up against the crowd. Like even though things are similar, the quality
Right.
and the differences still set you guys apart.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I appreciate that, man. That means a lot. I think someone else who's doing something really different with that same kind of look is Victor. I forget his last name. Let me find it.
Is it mascara? I don't know if
Yes.
I'm a I don't
Yeah.
know if I'm pronouncing that right.
That guy. His style is really cool.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the one of the other artists that I want to also have a chat with is Bill Ellis. I'm not positive I'm pronouncing that
Yeah.
correctly. He has the Brides of Lucifer piece, and then he
Yep.
also had, I forget the name of the actual artwork, but it was the Greek style pieces of like the Roman,
Hmm.
like Greek Roman heads with like the bisects in it, where you see like
Yeah.
the gold skull behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's doing some really cool stuff. He's getting creative with his drops as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I
I
think.
think yeah,
Hmm?
I think that something creative he's done is doing series,
Mhm.
and I think that's something kind of I want to explore how maybe I could do a series of drops like that. But obviously in my own way. But I
Mhm.
think that's a really interesting approach as well.
Yeah, I was talking with Glass Crane, and this is something that would be, I think, pretty awesome. Is to the analogy that I used is, are you somewhat a car guy? I'm guessing by the art that you're putting out, or no?
I'm not particularly, but for art's sake, yeah.
Okay. So do you know the FRS and the BRZ, the Subaru? It's like the little sports car, and then
Yeah.
now it's like the GT86. So they
Mhm.
basically put out the same car, same drivetrain, everything, and then they just kind of changed the badge. And
Right.
for me personally, I think that there should have been differences, right? Like Subaru's known for all-wheel drive. There's been some front-wheel drive sports cars that have came out of Toyota, and so
Mhm.
it would have been cool to have the front-wheel drive, the all-wheel drive have some kind of differences. And me
Yeah.
personally, like it's cool to do a collab with like two people, but you could probably do something like, say Bill Ellis drops, 6, 7. You could do one piece and then, hey, here's it 75% of the way. And then Glass Crane gets it, Lane gets it, and William. I'm just naming
Yeah.
other guys that have been on, but everybody gets to put their like finishing touches on it, and then
Yeah.
that's the set.
Bill Ellis is doing that for a competition where he provides a skull and everyone kind of just runs with it and does whatever they want. I forget what the competition's exactly
Mhm.
for, but yeah, that's a cool idea.
Yeah, I will have to figure that out. I haven't seen. Was that on Twitter or Instagram? Do you know? I'm just gonna try and actually look into
Yeah,
that.
I saw it on Instagram.
Instagram. Okay.
Yeah, that's a cool idea. But that's why it was fun doing the two-part series with Nate Hill because he kind of has two, I guess, signature looks. Is
Mhm.
one is those kind of like warped where it's like almost a sphere, those landscapes.
Mm,
And then he has the ones where they're like the line landscapes.
mm,
And so I was like, well, I don't know which route we want to go. And I was like, well, let's just do two. You can take one of my landscapes and
mm,
do like the sphere look with it. And then I'll take your lines and do my like clouds and textures and coloring and all of that. And so I think that was a cool approach to doing a collab is, one is more my look and one was more his, but they're both, combined. So
mm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's exactly it. That's definitely, one does the landscape, one does the finishing touches, and vice versa. Yeah.
yeah.
What's your take in terms of like people who are skeptical in terms of the industry? Do you think that it's just, success is self-evident? Do you think that it's sustainable?
Yeah. I mean, I agree that success is self-evident. I
Mm,
think value is what we make of it.
mm,
If somebody says a piece of art is worth 25 ETH, then that and they're willing to pay it, then that's
yeah.
what it's worth to them.
Mm,
Like I have no problem with that.
mm,
So I think that's definitely true. As far as sustainability, that's really interesting because I think like we said, there's an explosion right now,
mm,
and the dust will settle,
mm,
and we'll see where things lie in 10 years. Because we're also seeing an explosion in spaces to do it.
mm,
So it seems like every week there's new websites that will host your NFTs. So it's
mm,
kind of like a really interesting space. One of my neighbors, he's really interested in the technology behind crypto,
mm,
whereas I'm not the most technologically advanced.
mm,
And he sent me this place, and he was like, "This is going to be the Shopify for NFTs," and I was like, "I've never heard of that," like. So it's interesting how it's just feels like every week there's a new space. So we'll see, which ones last and which ones don't. But that's an interesting point.
So for you, I guess I'm kind of curious. Like, how do you actually describe your art? Like, what are you seeking to invoke, say, emotionally, or get
Sure.
out, or
Yeah. Digital dystopian, uh, surrealist, I guess.
Mm,
Yeah, definitely dystopian. There's very dark like moods and like, but I want to tell a story. I want to like something happened here.
mm,
What happened? And that's why I try to in my captions. Sometimes I've just taken stuff from like Philip K. Dick books or something like that, but I'll like make sure to attribute the quote to him. But then something I've been trying to do in newer pieces is write my own.
mm,
So the little snippet that I post as the caption is something I wrote that's trying to invoke a story.
mm,
So, like, what happened here, or what's going to happen.
mm,
So that's been a fun way to kind of describe the work
mm.
in the captions. But yeah, it's definitely like dystopian with like a hint of hope, a hint of adventure and but yeah, definitely heavily influenced by like dystopian sci-fi novels and movies.
Mm. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think that it does a good job, and if they're selling and they're hitting the right people, then it's definitely working, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I guess so. I'm out of questions. This has been my well. Okay, so Glass Crane actually said that I should ask everybody this, and so I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start asking everybody this.
All right.
What do you think is your purpose in life?
Oh God, too late for that. Uh, hmm. I think purpose is an ever evolving personal goal.
Mhm.
I think that and you can have more than one. So one of my purposes is to be a good husband and father. One of my purposes is to progress in my art. So I think it's ever evolving, and I think that's that.
Simple, short, sweet. Nice,
Yeah.
nice. So what I like to close on is, if you could step in my shoes, what question would you ask yourself?
Um, if you could do a movie poster for any movie existing or non, what would it be? And I would say Blade Runner, probably.
Apt.
If that wasn't obvious enough.
Yeah, very apt. Very apt. I think that
Mm.
you're well suited to it.
Appreciate it.
All right. Well, I'm out. I'm out of questions.
All right, sounds good, man. It was great to chat.
Yeah. Not really disrupted by any of the dogs or any of the babies, so that was awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank you, man.
not too bad.
Yeah. Appreciate the time. And
All right, man.
yeah, like I've been telling everybody, 6 months to a year, I'd love to run it back, see how you're doing, and check what the success is like. And yeah,
Yeah, that'd be great.
yeah. Thanks, man. Appreciate the time.
Awesome, man. Talk to you soon.
Later. Thank you for tuning into the show. Appreciate the time as always. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it as much as I do. I know that, for me at least, it really shines through that somebody really loves what they do. If they go, regardless of the success that they have in some other field, they're going to keep working, a normal 9 to 5 kind of job. So thank you, Corey, for the time. Thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it. As always, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Like, comment, subscribe. Appreciate you. Stay safe. Stay warm. Have fun. Peace.